What up, guys? John Wetmore here out of Atlanta. Um, Appreciate you guys at corporate, Sean, everybody at staff having me on. I'm going to talk today a little bit about topics like how to become a better manager, some self-development type stuff that I'm going to cover. I was actually talking to someone this morning on my ride into the office, and we were talking about some of this stuff in terms of like, for me, it's weird at different stages, and I think I still have to continue to try to get better. But at different stages, I think you learn different things along the way throughout this process. And the guy I was talking to this morning was trying to figure out, things I've learned through the process relative to where we're at today that he can implement now, but he didn't really have that many agents. And I'm like, dude, to be honest, some of it really doesn't apply at this point because some of the things I tell you are hard to implement if you don't mess it up a bunch. So I think at its core, for me, for sure, a big part of becoming a better manager is being willing to go through the process of learning how to become even a halfway decent one, and being willing to make the mistakes and learn as you go. Not worry so much about being judged along the way. I think if we're looking to do the right things and do this thing for the right reasons, I don't think any one of us is perfect. And if you look at it as you go forward and kind of look at it backwards, there's always going to be things you can adjust along the way. So I want to start with that. I would say some of the if I go to what things I actually did to get better. At its core, probably the first thing is actually having a desire to get better. I see a lot of managers in this deal that don't think they're the problem, really. And they blame a lot of things on agents. And what I was telling this dude this morning, for those of you that sell, I'm going to assume if you're trying to build, maybe you've learned how to sell. And we go, all right, you've gone into a client's home, knowing that or virtual, however y'all do it today, it's irrelevant. But knowing that the client has requested information, they're looking for insurance, they've let you over or scheduled the call, let you on the call, whatever it is y'all do today. And we go into it knowing full well that they need insurance. And if somehow we leave there without a policy, the question is, whose fault is that? And those of us that have been selling for a long time, we know it's our fault. Like, we messed something up. Whereas a new agent's going to be like, nah, the client is broke. They didn't have money. They want to call me next week. They're going to kind of blame, or they'll blame the lead. They'll blame the client or their situation. They'll kind of try to validate it through some type of logical whatever, excuse, objection, or problem. Yet those of us that have sold for a long time, or even maybe not even a long time, but at least at a higher level, understand that if, especially in our case with leads, where they come to us seeking information on insurance, if we don't write an app, it probably has to do with something we did incorrectly. And as I was talking to this dude, I was like, so let's put ourselves in a different situation and say we're trying to manage X number of agents, and the agent doesn't work out for whatever reason. They quit. They failed dialing and got frustrated and couldn't make it, or had some debt, chargebacks, whatever it is, and they left. Well, whose fault is it that they leave? Maybe they don't do enough trainings. Maybe they don't come to events, ask questions, call from the home. Like, whose fault is it that they failed or quit? And almost everyone I talk to is like, well, it's the agent's fault. But this dude this morning, what I loved, he was one of the few that goes, well, that's probably my fault then, especially given I set it up with the analogy about the client. He was smart enough to kind of pick up on where I was going with it. But almost everybody I've asked why agents quit based on whatever scenario, whose fault is that? 99% of people I ask are like, that's the agent's fault. And I'm like, well, if we're agent client and we don't make a sale, we know it's my fault. So if it's manager, new agent, and they don't make it, why is that not also my fault? And you can, I'm not blind to the fact that agents don't necessarily do everything correctly to where we could say that they had something or a decent amount to do with it. But at its core, that doesn't allow me to change the situation at all. Now it's like control the controllables. So if I go, what did I do incorrectly to where they didn't hear me talk about, what did I say that makes them not buy leads on a consistent basis? What did I say incorrectly that gets them to have fear of buying too many leads? What did I say that causes them to not realize the importance of training, or that I'm available to call for help? Or like, what did I do that made that agent not perform in a way that they should to put the things on their side to more than likely be able to have success? And so I think for my first couple of years in this business, every time an agent quit, I was much like when I was with clients going, yeah, they were broke, they were this, they were that, the lead. Every time an agent quit, I blame the agent. I'm like, he's an idiot. He didn't understand. He didn't put in the work. He was lazy, which again, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Who cares? But who cares if I'm trying to make me better? So I had to start looking at it after a while and go, what influence did I have on this situation? Again, did I articulate things right? Did I set the right expectations? Did I find out enough about the agent to be able to guide them in the direction that they want to go for their family? Do I even understand their family dynamic? Like, do I even know anything about this agent, or their struggles, or their fears, or their support or lack of support from their family or spouse or kids? Or, do I know their financial situation? If I don't know any of that stuff, am I really helping the agent? And the answer was no. And I had to eventually accept that, because I wasn't seeing the success in terms of numbers. We weren't growing. Everyone that I was hiring, because there weren't many that I was hiring. I was doing my best, but I talked to a few people a week, maybe. Which means I didn't always get agents started every month. I'd get one started here, one there. I'd get one or two started. They'd get paid, write a couple apps, they'd quit. I'd get one or two started. They'd write a couple apps, get paid, they'd quit. And after going through that process I started in 2012, mid 2012. I went full time mid 2013. Mid 2014, I still had like one or two agents. I didn't really start getting any traction until like mid 2015. So 3 full years before I really started getting any traction. And the biggest change I made at that stage was, I don't like the results that I'm causing. So I really started working on it. And even if I were to dive in even deeper, I remember once Sean taught me about reputation. And reputation is not necessarily true or false. If someone thinks something of me, doesn't mean they're right, doesn't mean they're wrong. It just is. And a reputation comes from a bunch of people thinking something in common. And my reputation at the time was not good for agents. They didn't like how they felt after they spoke to me, especially multiple times. I don't think I made people feel empowered or feel like they could win. I probably made people feel like they were disappointing me or not doing what it took. And I really started to go, I actually care for people, and I'm pretty direct. And I do that because I feel like I'm lying to people if I'm not direct about what the issue is. Excuse me for the cough. I've had a cough for a couple of weeks, so I apologize. But I felt like I was lying if I didn't tell people the truth. But what I learned is people hear things differently than what I say. And what I was telling the dude this morning is a very simple example. If you ask me for some help on phone script, and I have a cool phone script video, and I say, hey, check out this video, you might hear, dude, John doesn't want to help me at all. All he did was send me the stupid video. When in fact, that's not the case at all. I'm actually trying to empower you to train and learn and be coachable and study. And then if there's any questions, certainly I can be there for you. But it's all in the delivery. So I might go, hey, Joe Blow, actually, great question. I'm actually running into a meeting. Dude, I'm going to send you this video I recorded on it. I've heard it's helped a lot of agents. Why don't you watch it? It's like 45 minutes. I don't have 45 minutes now to go over it. Why don't you watch it, study it, write down any questions you may have, and then call me afterwards and let's go over it and see if I can clarify anything. And it's the same step of giving someone a video, letting them watch and train, and then having them call me. But the way they feel based on my delivery is different. And what I want you to do is take that concept and apply it everywhere in your business. And go, how am I was at this Ed Milet event a few months ago, and someone asked him how he plans the events, like what to talk about, who to have on, whatever. And he goes, I start with the feeling I want people to leave with, and then I build the entire event around that feeling I want them to have. And so I had to really sit down and go like, all right, how do I want agents to feel? And I wanted agents to feel like they could do this too. I wanted agents to feel like if they did as much activity as the next guy, say Mark Mead or myself, whoever, if they did as much activity, they could have somewhere in the ballpark of a similar result. That we weren't that much better skill set wise. It was heavily weighted towards the activity. I wanted people to feel that. I wanted people to feel relatable more than like they can do it and it doesn't mean I can. You know, I didn't want people to have that feeling. So I started changing the way I worded things. And I started watching people's reactions and body language and the way they responded to me. And I just started being insanely intentional about not only my delivery, but the reaction to my delivery. And I was open to feedback, you know, and it's not hard to tell if you pay attention to someone's tonality or body language or whatever, when you're speaking to them. We're all kind of wired with that ability to read that, you know, read human interaction. So I think if you just know to pay attention to it, now we go like, oh, you're going to see some things differently than you ever saw them. And now if you go at people with a different approach and try to control the way people feel, things will get different. You know, so I really started studying. I read a lot just on a basic level. You know, one of my favorite books, and it's not the end all be all, but one of my favorite books is Maxwell's 5 Levels of Leadership. It was a really good book for me in the way that people viewed me, and how differently 2 different people, I could be at whatever stage I'm at today, and 2 different people, person A and person B, view me totally different, which means I have to communicate and speak to each one of them differently. And I always say this, like those of y'all that sell a lot as well, when you go into clients' homes and you deal with, I don't know, a 20-year-old kid or a 68-year-old grandma, you speak to them differently. You behave differently, you interact differently, you tell different stories, different tonality, different speech patterns. Or if someone's happy by nature or frustrated and mad after work by nature, like you're dynamic in your personality. You tend to not let clients see how frustrated you are that things aren't tracking. Like you're super dynamic in your skill set and ability to deal with wide ranges of people. And what I learned is when we leave the house, we turn that ability off and we treat all the agents the same way. We're kind of like a one-trick pony when it comes to communicating on a management level. And I had to learn I had to keep that switch on, that intentionality switch. I had to always be on and be intentional. So I really just started, more than anything, working on me, studying me, getting feedback. I'm around good people who are honest. I've had good conversations with Sean and Killamette, Mark Mead, Paul. I named too many. I can't name them all. Everybody that's helped me along the way. I've always sought how I can get better in delivering things. Again, reading for me has been insanely valuable for the last 8 or so years. I have hundreds of books at this stage. I'm a big self-development podcast kind of guy when I'm at the gym. I like doing events, and I just like studying me, honestly. Hell, I've done therapy. Those of y'all that like that thing, I'm a therapy kind of guy. That doesn't bother me to talk about either. You know, so I think at its core, if you can understand if your agency is not going the direction you want it to go, it's probably not the agent's fault. It's probably not, you know, where you're recruiting. It's probably not your recruiting source. It's probably not the lead flow of your recruits. It's probably not your managers. I'm just guessing it's probably not. You know, so I think if you can look at things from the same point as an individual agent and go, what am I doing incorrectly in this situation? How can I improve? And I just started being honest about it. You know, whatever my reputation was, it was a little bit negative, and maybe I was considered to be a little bit of an a-hole to people, and I didn't, deep down, I actually cared for people and I wanted people to win. It just came across and people received it differently than I wanted them to. So I just started being really open along the way about who I am and the changes I'm trying to make. Um, I started front loading stuff. Can you turn that off, Amanda? I started front loading stuff in terms of um, just being open about that I am direct, and here's why, and here's what it means, and things like that. Things like that help me a ton. Just being transparent about who I am and what I'm trying to do. And again, we're all imperfect, but if you can learn to relate to people, get them to like and trust you, and then help people get from point A to point B, whatever that is for them. Instead of trying to build, if you're trying to build this thing for you and your override and your agency and how big you get, what your numbers are. Like I get we're all trying to grow our business, but if that's the root, the core of why you get up every day is to have a big agency, I just don't know a lot of people that build big agencies that way. Whereas if at the core you go, I actually want to help people win. I actually want to take this guy that I don't know and help him get from point A to point B so he can support his family differently. Man, people receive things a lot differently. And no different than an agent who doesn't run enough appointments and they're worried about making a sale solely so they can pay their electric bill that week or their rent. Like the agents feel it when you're trying to get them to move because you need money, or you need a raise or you need some status or the next level. So look at yourself at the core, change who you are. It doesn't happen overnight. I'm still a disaster, but I work on it every day. And, I've learned to enjoy the process of growth and trying to get better. So that's what I got today. Hope y'all have a good one. Find help. Let me know later.